Hi, this is Zach from HR Technology and Consulting Company Elgin LLC, and I am joined by professional services architect Ali from Snaplogic.
Hi, everyone.
So let's jump right in. In this demonstration, we're going to walk through employee onboarding and employee offboarding, two sides of the same coin. So the first thing we're going to show you is completing a hires transaction inside of Workday, our human resources information system of record. And you'll see that as soon as that employee is hired, a Snaplogic pipeline is invoked, which is going to kick off a series of automations and integrations to a bunch of ancillary systems across the ecosystem. So you'll see digital file folders being automatically created. You'll see a ServiceNow account get spun up. You'll see Salesforce activation, a learning management system change, a whole host of things updated to make your life easier as an HR or IT practitioner. Ultimately, what that's going to do is save you a ton of time, a ton of money, and free up your resources to go ahead and work on those things that machines are not really well equipped to do right now, but that you're really well equipped to do. After we've done that and shown you that first onboarding use case, we'll go ahead and look at the tail end of the employee lifecycle, a termination event. So we'll actually terminate an employee inside of Workday, and then you'll see those same systems update to reflect that termination. Again, an automation that'll save you time, money, and also de-risk your business, preventing a user who's been terminated from accessing systems after they've departed your organization. So, Ali, I'm going to kick it over to you to talk through how this whole process works.
Sure. So we're going to go into the system of record for employee information, which is Workday. And we're going to go ahead and hire an employee. So hire employee. And we will select the supervisory organization, basically filling out the required fields. And we're going to create a new pre-hire. All right, so first name, we'll just put in a test user, test employee, Jones, and put in the required contact information, bring in the phone number, phone device, type, and last but not least, the email address. Oh, so let me actually move that and put in the email address. So Michael Jones at snaplogic.com. I'll just copy that for reference. And set the email address as work email. And I think that's about all the required information we need at this point. I'll click OK. I'll select the hire date as some date in the past, July 1st. I'll select the position as an administrator, employee type as regular. Reason for hire, I'll select new hire to fill a vacancy. Job profile, set it as an admin, facilities administrator. Time type, full-time, location, set Atlanta. And these are just test values. This integration is not necessarily dependent on any of these test values that you see on this page here. So, but it is required by Workday. So I'm going to
those are fields that you could set up additional triggers or additional sort of routing logic on if you wanted to. So our integration is going to pick these up and actually push them into a data store, which I'd neglected to mention at the outset, and also could be used for triggering any kind of event we wanted as a second or third order business routing.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. In fact, in this particular integration, it does depend on a supervisory organization of global modern services, but you can certainly change that and change the requirements within Workday and have that trigger a Snaplogic pipeline per your requirements. Absolutely. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and submit. All right, so I'm going to open up the compensation approval. So I'm going to submit that. So there are some required approvals within Workday before Workday triggers the Snaplogic pipeline. So next, to check on, or basically set the background check status, we'll set it as passed, submit, and the process successfully completed. So what happens generally, depending on Workday's latency and performance, anywhere from 5 to 10 seconds after this process, Workday will trigger the Snaplogic pipeline. And I could show that here. This is the Snaplogic pipeline. The information is being received and it's sent to this JSON parser, as we can see here. It's being sent through, additional information is retrieved from Workday based on that triggering from Workday. And because this employee is a hire, it will go this particular route and call an employee onboarding pipeline. Now, if the employee was terminated, the pipeline would go this route and call the offboarding child pipeline, okay? So another thing that I'll do, I will open up the dashboard. We can actually see the pipeline execution in action and check on the performance, the status, and various other pieces of information. So basically here, we can see the pipeline health, and then clicking on the pipeline. Here, this is our pipeline that has just been triggered. And we can view the child pipeline status by clicking on this plus sign. Other thing to note, if you just hover your cursor for some of the icons, it'll actually tell you some additional pieces of information. For example, this tells us it was triggered by a task. So we can see some external system, in this case Workday, triggered this Snaplogic pipeline. Okay. So we can see some additional runs that are occurring here. Clicking on the status, we can actually see what's currently being executed and what we're waiting on. So right now, the employee onboarding child pipeline is currently executing. Okay. And I can actually go to that child pipeline now for the onboarding. So it's a very simple pipeline. We see that a user account is being created in ServiceNow, also in Salesforce. Employee information is being sent to a child pipeline for people analytics. And what the people analytics pipeline would do is push that information to a Snowflake table. Okay. Similarly, for LMS, in this example use case, we're using an LMS, a learning management system called SkillJar. So this new hire will have a new user account created for them within the SkillJar learning management system. And lastly, this employee will have a folder structure created in Box. And Box will hold file attachments relating to performance reviews, objectives and key results, expense reports, LMS transcript information, and many other different types of files and pieces of information will be sent to Box for this employee. Okay. So let's go check the status of the pipeline. We see that it has been completed. And now we can check the respective systems to which information was created for this user. So we see the Box folder structure. We have a folder structure for active employees and one for terminated. Since this new hire is active, we'll click on active folder. So these letters indicate the first letter of the last name of employees. So in this case, Michael Jones. Jones start with the letter J. So we'll click on J folder. And we see Michael Jones's folder has been created. And this last number is his employee ID from Workday. So clicking on that, we see the 5 folders created for Michael Jones. Training will hold the training information, transcript information. Expenses will hold information, for example, from Expensify or any other system that holds expense reports. Performance, it could be from, say, a performance review system. such as Cornerstone On Demand or any other performance tracking system, etc. We have compensation and lifecycle as well. Okay. Next, we'll go to Salesforce. So here we are in the Salesforce system to which the Michael Jones user account was created. So I will click refresh so that now we can see the user account for Michael Jones created. So here we are, Michael Jones, now an active user. So just clicking on his account. So we see Michael Jones, his email flowed through. We have a profile of standard user set and active. Okay. Skill jar, let's look up Michael Jones. Michael Jones has been created. So I'll just click on his account. He joined today, which the user account has been created. Let's skip to ServiceNow. So let's look up Michael Jones in ServiceNow. Just type in his email search, and we see Michael Jones has been created. Basically, a user account for Michael Jones has been created in ServiceNow, as you can see here, okay, with the creation date of today. And lastly, let's check the People Analytics Snowflake system. So Michael Jones, his employee ID is 21775. So we can actually look up that employee ID within Snowflake and see what the user record looks like. So this is the user record, this employee record for Michael Jones within Snowflake. So Snowflake will hold metadata and analytics information for each employee. So we see the position ID and the various pieces of information associated with Michael Jones. All right. So that wraps up the onboarding piece. And the next up is offboarding. Okay, so what I will do is go and start proxy my own user account so that I can terminate the Michael Jones employee within Workday. In addition, what I would like to do, so we saw an example of triggering a pipeline. There's also other methods that a pipeline could be triggered. It can be called by another pipeline, for example, or it can run on a scheduled basis, or you can manually execute it. If I wanted to manually execute the pipeline, for example, I would click on this manual execution. But I'd like to also show an example of actually passing in information, for example, through a parameter to this pipeline. And we can do that through the termination use case. Okay. So first, what I will do is terminate this user or this employee within Workday. So let's do that. So first I need to approve pay group Michael Jones. So this is just a requirement within Workday. So, all right. Okay, so I think those are, yeah, no other approvals necessary for Michael Jones. So let's look up Michael Jones. Okay, and so let us terminate this employee. So terminate employee. So primary reason, select voluntary, and we'll say it's hired by a competitor. And we will set the termination date to July 13th. All right. And I will submit that. Okay, so next I will proxy in as the approver. In this case, it is Logan McNeil. All right, and I will select terminate Michael Jones. And I will approve this termination. Okay. So Michael Jones has been terminated from Workday. So what I will do is show an example of actually calling or executing this pipeline with the information passed through as a parameter instead of it being triggered. So I will remove this JSON parser. So this JSON parser was in such a way that an external system can call Snaplogic and send its information through this JSON parser input. But now, since we're going to accept the information from a parameter, I can go ahead and delete this, right? I can actually create a parameter. In this case, we'll call it Workday Employee ID. So Workday Employee ID. And Michael Jones's Workday Employee ID in this example was 21775. So I will type in 21775. Go ahead and copy that. So I have it. So 21775, I'll click save. And I'll go ahead and modify the mapper snap to accept that parameter. So in this case, having an underscore before parameter name is basically the proper syntax of utilizing parameters within Snaplogic. Okay, so I have this underscore Workday Employee ID. So now this employee ID is going to be taken in as a parameter. Clicking save. Now, once I execute this pipeline, it will go through the terminated route because this employee is now terminated within Workday. So I'll go ahead and execute it. So now I'm going to go into the dashboard. See, now we have this pipeline has been queued and it's going to begin shortly. And also, if you notice, it says manual pipeline. Once I hover my cursor over this icon of a person, basically this icon indicates it is a manual pipeline. So you can quickly see the type of execution for each of your pipelines. Okay. And so what's going to happen as this pipeline is running, basically Michael Jones's box folder information will be moved from this active folder to terminated folder. I'll go there now. We'll go into this terminated folder. Next, Michael Jones's Salesforce user account will be inactivated. Michael Jones's SkillJar learning management system account will also be inactivated. So to do that within SkillJar, the expiration date will be 1 day in the past, so that this user, this employee, can no longer access SkillJar. Next, within Snowflake, we will see another employee record show up and indicate this employee has been terminated. Lastly, within ServiceNow, the ServiceNow user account will be deleted. And you can certainly have it such that, instead of a deletion, you want the user to be inactivated. That is fine, and that is certainly possible as well. Okay. So let's check. Oh, and one other thing, I'd like to show the offboarding pipeline as well. It's very similar to the onboarding pipeline, but instead of creating user records for many of the systems, it's actually deleting them. So for example, ServiceNow, user account is deleted. Salesforce, the user account will be inactivated. Snowflake, there will be a record inserted to indicate that the employee has been terminated. Box, as mentioned earlier, the folders will move from the active location to the terminated location. And then in SkillJar, the user access expiration date will be set in such a way that the user can no longer access SkillJar. Okay. So let's check on the status. So we see that it has been completed. So let's first go into Box. So let's click on Terminated. We see folder J there for, and basically we can find Michael Jones's folder within the J folder. So clicking, as we can see here, Michael Jones is now in the terminated Box folder location, as well as all of the contents within it. Okay. User account. So I will just refresh this page within Salesforce. As you can see, it's no longer active. Michael Jones's account is no longer active. Why? Because the Snaplogic pipeline called the offboarding pipeline, and it inactivated Michael Jones's Salesforce account. Okay. Skill jar, I will refresh this page. So as you can see, the expiration date is 1 day in the past. This is to ensure this user, Michael Jones, can no longer access skill jar. Next up, Snowflake. We'll look up this user. You should now see 2 records now, as you can see here. 2 records have been created. And just scrolling on over, you see terminated, the latest record. First record says active, latest record says terminated. Okay. Lastly, ServiceNow. So I will do a search again for Michael Jones at snaplogic.com. As you can see, Michael Jones's account is no longer listed. It has been deleted. So there we have it. That is the offboarding use case. So you have seen both onboarding and offboarding triggered through Workday, as well as manually executed through a parameter.
Awesome. That was a fantastic demo. Thank you, Ali. This really, on its own, we're talking about it being a fairly simple set of pipelines that's going on. Snaplogic is doing a really good job of obfuscating all of the heavy lifting that's going on in the background. We don't really have to worry about that too much. If we're someone who's an HR practitioner and we're the one processing the transaction in Workday, we don't have to see any of it at all. We just go ahead and click hire, and the rest of it just works, which is amazing. And while we've hit 5 or 6 different systems here, which is awesome, there's no limit to what we can do there. If we want to add in automated triggerings for employee lifecycle surveys, we absolutely could do that. If we had a manager who was hired or terminated and we need to do some reassignment of approvals inside of ancillary systems, we could do that too. If we wanted to make sure that these changes in the metadata capture that Ali, you were showing us inside of Snowflake are percolating out to the rest of the organization, so we have those enterprise metrics ready to go near real time or actually at real time, yeah, we can absolutely do that. So there is no limit to the level of customization, secondary, tertiary workflows and business logics we can put into place. It's really an amazing capability and something that isn't really bounded by anything other than your imagination and creativity in terms of solving problems and streamlining what's going on inside of the business. So a really cool capability, a major game changer from our perspective when you're looking at modernizing your HR and shared services space. So we'll go ahead and conclude the demo there. Appreciate you watching. If you are ready to learn how to automate, streamline, and save, reach out to Snaplogic and Elgin LLC today, and we'll be looking forward to having a conversation with you. Thanks for watching.